So what I'm going to do for you guys here today is I'm going to add to what Paul said earlier about your sedentary activity. So now when you're getting up and you're moving around, I'm going to tell you what to do with that time, for starters. And I'm also going to help you avoid that frailty creep that Brian Hurd talked about before. Okay. But first, we need to go through the bad news. Okay. So ageing is a combination of lifestyle and genetic factors. Some things that we can do some stuff about, like you guys realise that if you want to get old quick, you know, smoke cigarettes, drink too much, don't sleep well, eat bad food. And there's some genetic factors involved as well. We've come back to a lot of the train of thought. If you want to know how long you're going to live, look at your parents. You know, there's a bit of truth to that as well. So the other things that we see change, of course, we have changes in our blood cholesterol. We also have changes in our respiratory and our cardiac system. Our hearts aren't as strong as they used to be. Our lungs don't breathe in and absorb as much oxygen as they once upon a time used to. We have changes in our blood volume and our water volume. So we just don't have the nutrient carrying capacity that we did in our younger years. And all this makes our immunocompetency change, which just basically means that we're more susceptible to diseases and disability. The thing that I'm most interested in my research, and the thing that I see needs to be changed most in older adults to avoid later life disability and institutionalisation, is changes in our muscle mass. Across our lifespan, we can expect a 25% decrease in any muscle in our body. Our quads, our arms, and a few of you guys might be experiencing that now. You might be thinking to yourself, God, these were so wonderful when I was younger, and now look at them. And some of these figures, have a look at these figures. You have 50% change in your muscle strength, your ability to stand from chairs, walk, climb, get out of bars, get in and out of your basic daily activities is going to change by up to 50%. And your muscle power, your ability to coordinate your centre of gravity with your centre of balance, get up, get moving, get walking, and maintain that momentum is going to change by up to 75%. And that is going to have a big impact on your ability to remain independent and live within your own home for the rest of your life. The other things that we know, we understand this term frailty. You guys all have a picture in your mind what it means, slight bent over, shuffling gait. Sarcopenia refers to your loss of muscle mass, your strength and your physical performance, which is a precursor to poor health and to disability. We also have changes in our balance and our incidence of fall. We all understand that falling becomes a massive danger as we age. And our functional ability. This is the one that frightens us the most. This is our ability to remain in our own homes. The other things that we don't think about in relation to our changes in our muscle physiology are these sorts of things. Our metabolic rate. When we have smaller muscles, we don't burn as much energy and we're more susceptible to weight gain. We also have less blood volume because all of our muscles are filled with blood. So we need that blood volume to pump around all the nutrients that we need in repair and day-to-day living to create energy for movement. We also have changes in our body fat, I mentioned before, our bone mineral density. So many of us take for granted that our bones are the levers through which our muscles work. So when we have smaller muscles, we have smaller and less muscle contractions, our bones become smaller and smaller and smaller. But in turn, when we do things like go to the gym or do repetitive weight-bearing exercise, challenge our muscles, we apply forces through our bones which make our bones grow bigger and bigger and bigger. And finally, this quality of life. A very subjective term, and all of you have an understanding of what you feel is your optimal quality of life. But of course, as we become more disabled, we become less capable, we have less family and social interactions, we also have a change in our quality of life. So, going back, you guys all recognise this guy. Hey, come bring him back out of the closet. So I don't think when the Australian government really came up with the concept of norm, they really understood how much they were preempting this whole idea of sedentary behaviours that Paul Gardner talked about to you earlier today. You know, all the... Oh, we're going to get him? Yep, there you go. Is that going to keep going? No? Okay, so all the, you know, even for his time, conveniently located, doesn't have to get up, go anywhere, you know, laziness, the obesity, drinking the poor nutritional choice fluids, and watching extended TV viewing time, 22 minutes. No wonder Norm's well and truly dead by now, So as Paul discussed with you earlier, this is becoming a big problem, And again, if any of you guys feel the need to stand up, I'm going to make you do it all later. During my talk, please up and down as much as you like. So this is a massive issue for older adults. The longer periods of time we spend sitting, and Paul gave you some of the figures. In some work that Paul and I did together most recently, we found that in residential aged care, people move for only 25 minutes a day. I know. It's a lot of sitting, a lot of lying, and a lot of sleeping. So to stay healthy and to stay well, we all need to be involved in some level of physical activity. And it becomes incredibly important in our later life. In our younger years, we want to be fast, fit and strong. We want to look fantastic. But in our later years, that exercise is going to prevent us from falling below this line of frailty and dependency. If you just sit back and relax, this is your average trajectory. Disability, dependency. But if you do something about it, and it's never too late to start, you can prolong that well-being and resist that fall into dependency. Nobody wants dependency. As Brian Herb was saying before, who really wants to move into residential aged care? There's nothing flash about that, is there? So, exercise has been shown to, beyond a doubt, improve cardiac and respiratory parameters. With just one session of exercise, you can reduce your blood pressure. With 2 weeks of regular exercise, you can reduce your blood pressure unaided by medication for up to 4 weeks. You can improve your respiratory capacity. The ability to get up and down stairs, walk to the corner shops, can improve with just a little bit of exercise. We can improve all these muscular parameters that I talked about before. Muscle mass, an incredible independent definer of health and well-being. The larger your muscle mass, the more you can resist metabolic syndrome, diabetes, and a variety of other later life diseases. We can have improvements in muscle strength, muscle power, and muscle endurance, which transfer directly to an improvement in our functional ability and our ability to remain independent within our own home. The other thing that exercise does is it promotes mitochondrial growth and capillary density, which means that basically we can create more energy at the muscle and we can bring more blood to the muscle. There's other things as well. Markers of inflammation decrease, and there's 2 types of inflammation you might be thinking about. Some are very related to muscle health, the interleukin 6 and 10s, but the one that you guys probably have jumped to the conclusion of are things like arthritis, where we have inflammation in the localised joint, which causes pain and stiffness. With exercise, you can pump that fluid away and you can have a lot of pain relief in relation to your arthritises. Prevention of further losses of bone mineral density, and I say prevention of because even low-intensity exercises like walking, and some people in the audience are going, well, that's the only exercise I do. And it's not enough, I'm going to tell you about that later. But even with low-intensity exercises like that, you can change your trajectory of bone mineral density loss. But with things like weight-bearing exercise, resistance training, repetitive contraction type training, you can actually turn around your bone mineral density. It takes a while, but you can bring yourself out of osteoporosis and into normal bone mineral density. The other things that it changes, it can decrease body fat. And a lot of people are thinking, that's the reason I want to exercise, but it's not. It's probably the worst reason that any of you guys in this room would get involved in exercise. It's the hardest thing to achieve with exercise, and it has the least amount of instantaneous impact on your health. All these other things, the changes in your symptoms of diseases, your sleeping patterns, your increases in muscle mass, your strength, your independence, they pretty much come straight away. Your changes in muscle mass, they take quite a while to see. Changes in your symptoms of disease, depression and anxiety. Exercise is a more powerful tool than medication in relation to diseases and disabilities. Improve sleeping patterns, balance and posture, and we show over and over again, excuse me for a moment, show over and over again that we can reduce falls risk in older adults with exercise, regular exercise. Social interactions, not only in the exercise classes that you're attending, but you're more capable of going to the shops, you're more capable of going to your social clubs, you're more capable of being socially interactive. improvements in your quality of life, a reduction in your cognitive losses. Exercise is the one proven methodology we have to date showing that we can reduce losses in cognitive well-being for older adults. And we'll talk about that very soon as well. And sorry, this should be up a bit. Of course, what we're all after, prolonged independence. Want to remain at home, looking after ourselves. So powerful is exercise as a treatment that Exercise and Sports Science Australia and the gold standard to exercise in the world, the American College of Sports Medicine, are referring to it as exercise is medicine. There is some 26 known diseases and disabilities that exercise can prevent and can effectively treat. I'll give you the example of diabetes. For somebody who is diagnosed with diabetes, if they go on to the diabetes medication, it can slow down the progression of the disease, but it can't slow it down as effectively as exercise and lifestyle modification. And exercise and lifestyle modification is free. Everybody can do it. Symptoms reductions as well. I talked about blood pressure before, changes in your pain and your osteoarthritis. All of them are available through effective and guided exercise. Talked a little bit about changes in cognitive decline before. We've got a lot of studies out there that have had a look at large populations, track their physical activity, and use such basic measures as blocks walked. You know, how many blocks do you walk per week? And what they've found in these large epidemiological studies is people who walk a quarter of a mile or greater per day have a significant reduced risk of developing an Alzheimer's disease at a 4 and a 6 year follow-up in comparison to those who are sedentary or don't do any walking at all. For those people who've already got a dementia or an Alzheimer's disease, studies have shown that they can have improvements in their cardiovascular fitness, their strength, their flexibility, reductions in their body mass, improvements in their activities of daily living function, improvements in their cognition, and reductions in their agitation and their behaviours, improvements in their behaviours. So again, you know, we can't cure that disease, but we can definitely change the way that person is interacting with their community and ageing. So the last thing I'd like to talk to you about before I give you some specifics about exercise is this concept of prehabilitation. Now, it shouldn't say rehabilitation. It actually means prehabilitation. And what it refers to is that if you are unwell, if you are unfit, and if you are sedentary, and you have an expected surgical intervention, your risk of post-surgery intervention complications are incredibly high in comparison to somebody who is fit and healthy. And this study done here, that I've taken this data from, put people into an exercise program for as short a period as 4 weeks prior to their surgical intervention. And after 4 weeks, they had their surgery, they had their recovery, and during that recovery, the people who had exercised had a shortened recovery time, an increased quality of life during recovery, decreased post-operative complications, and they had increased functional ability post-operation, meaning it was easier for them to return to their own homes and to their community dwelling lifestyles. Okay, so I know you guys all probably want me to give you some magical program that you can all do, but I'm not going to. I'm going to give you some guidelines, and I'm going to suggest you go and talk to the guys at Healthy Connections. You go and get involved in programs like Bernie Bray. You look in your community and you find out if there's any exercise programs, whether it be Westfield walking groups or whether it be a local gym which has a special time that they set aside for older adults to get involved in exercise programs. Because you guys are all different. For me to give you an exercise program, I'd need to individualise it for your needs, for your capacity. So I encourage you to go and find somebody who can give you that information, that individualised information to help you get started if you're not already started. And Healthy Connections are a great way to go, just over here at Bernie Bray. So, the cartoon here is indicative of who we are as a general human population. There is a lot of us out there who cannot find time, for whatever reason it might be in relation to our barriers to exercise, but a lot of us can't find time to do enough, let alone do more. And what they say is, in general, we're asked to do a half an hour of moderate exercise per day. There's only about 20% of us who report that we're actually adhering to that recommendation. And within that, there's even less of us who are doing more and above. And that's what we need. We actually need more and above if we're going to age well. So in relation to your modes or your types, walking is great, but it is only a small part of the equation. For you to resist disability, you need to also be doing something which challenges your muscles through their full range of motion. So you need to be doing weight-bearing exercise, and that can be going, in the park out the back of my place, they've got all this wonderful, free-to-use exercise equipment. It can be the utilisation of that. It can be a gym-based exercise program specific to older adults, like Healthy Connections is. It can be a group-based exercise where you do repetitive chair stands, step up, stomping your feet, raising your arms, or you can even do it, if you're confident enough, in your own home where you use bands and balls in your environment to do that repetitive, challenging activity to try to challenge those muscles across your entire body. The frequency needs to be every day. We need to be doing something every day. And that might sound like a task, but it doesn't always need to be structured exercise either. It can be getting out in the garden. It can be going for a walk with a friend. It can be going to the shops and spending a half an hour walking around and doing a bit of window shopping. It can be staying on your feet more so than sitting in your comfy chair and watching TV and thinking that you should be staying on your feet. The intensity needs to be at a moderate intensity. And this is one thing that confuses a lot of people. Because you want to exercise at a moderate intensity, but most of you guys are thinking to yourself, I do that. I go out for a walk 3 days a week with Mavis and we talk freely and we have a great time. And if you can talk freely, you're not exercising at a moderate intensity. I'm sorry. So think about that as your talk test. When you can move around freely, when you're exercising or you're doing anything, and you can talk freely, that's a low intensity. When you're reaching a point where you might be grabbing a breath every 2 to 3 words, that's a moderate intensity. And when you're every word taking a breath, that's a high intensity. And you can apply that across every type of activity that you might be doing. What's next? Duration. Now the duration should be very much determined by your level of fitness. So I'm not going to give you a magical number for time. I'm going to let you set it against your own capacity. When you feel tired, rest, but always be challenging yourself. We've got some solid guidelines about 60 minutes a day, 30 minutes a day, all that sort of stuff. And there's good solid guidelines. But if you're trying to achieve that level of fitness, don't overdo it. Last thing I want to hear back next year is, oh my God, I did 60 minutes, had a heart attack and I couldn't do any more. So take it easy to begin with, do what you can, but be progressing, slowly but surely trying to increase that time that you're involved in exercise. Your environment's very important as well. You've got to be comfortable. Yeah, sure, I can see a few of you guys in the Jane Fonda leotard, banging music, fitness first in front of the mirrors. But for a lot of you other guys, it's maybe not appropriate. So your home environment's perfect, and there's some great resources out there that you can get your hands on which will allow you to do a home-based exercise program. There is gyms, I've mentioned Bernie Bray before, there is other ones, the Green Apple Wellness Centre, there's all these sorts of places around which are targeted towards the older adult, and it doesn't have to be a Fitness First or any of those big, loud, gym-based gymnasiums. How are we going for time? Okay, yeah. 5 minutes? Super. So the other place, as I said, out the back of my place, great big park, 6 pieces of equipment, free to use, instructions on them, that sort of stuff's great as well. But you've got to be comfortable there. You've got to be happy to do it there, and you've got to feel safe to do it there. So pick the environments which appeal to you, because with that environment, you're more likely to adhere. And that's what you want. You don't want to take away this advice, say, what a great idea, I'm going to start next week, and then not do it on a regular basis. So next is recovery. So one of the biggest mistakes a lot of people make when they want to get involved is they think, I'm going to start this regime. I'm going to go to the gym today. I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to play a game of tennis on Wednesday this week. And then on Friday, I'm going to do this Tai Chi class up at the local town hall that I've heard. And then on Saturday, I'm going to lay in a puddle on my living room floor and not be able to move because all my joints and my muscles are incredibly sore. So take your time. Start slow. And start to build. Like I talked about that progression with your intensity and with your duration. Start to build. Do a little bit more as you become fitter, as you become more competent. Let your recoveries become shorter and your opportunities to exercise become more regular. And your pain, and this is something which is very personal. Some of you guys are incredibly stoic. I've met some people with massively developed osteoarthritic knees And they can struggle through all sorts of things. And other people, they do it once, they do it twice, and it's, oh, I can't do that anymore. So how you manage that pain is very much up to you. Don't overdo it. Again, you don't want it to be a barrier to participation, but dealing with that pain is something you need to be able to potentially do, and there is exercises out there, different exercises which won't affect it so much, and other exercises which will affect it. So again, I encourage you to go and find guidance to get started, and once you've started and you've got a bit of an understanding yourself, then take it from there by yourself. So these are the Australian recommendations. The good thing about the Australian recommendations is they're very clear and they talk about physical activity. So physical activity is basically the umbrella term within which all the sorts of movements we do in our day which expend energy come under. Exercise is definitely one of them. But also there's gardening, there's vacuuming, there's doing a bit of work around the house, there's going to the shops, there's all that sort of stuff. So the value of the term physical activity is it's just trying to encourage you to move, get involved more, be out in your community a bit more. So the Australian guidelines presently read that everybody should be involved, no matter how old, how unfit, how unhealthy, or how low your ability. Exercise is for everyone. You can start slow and build up. The second recommendation is that you should be doing something every day that targets your fitness, your strength, your balance, and your flexibility. So a little bit of this and a little bit of that across your entire week is going to add up to your good health. Third, you should be looking to accumulate 30 minutes of moderate intensity exercise on preferably all days. If you've stopped, start slow. Start again slow. Slowly but surely build up again. And if you've been doing vigorous exercise, continue to do so as long as it is safe to do so. I always like to show this photo. This is Albert Beckles at 58 years of age. Obviously the right sort of supplement regime and the right sort of background genetics to get him there. But the idea is to demonstrate that with a good solid training regime into later life, people can have, fantastic physiques. The thing to remember is that if you go to the gym, nobody in this room is going to end up looking like this. What you guys are aiming for is this, of course, interacting with your families, playing with your grandkids, out for a walk, looking after yourselves, looking independent, looking happy. And exercise is the pathway to that. And that's it. Thanks.